You know, the idea of a left-handed tribal Magic the Gathering deck seems very interesting to me, and I don't know how it would work.
Well, now I've got to fix some posts real quick, so I'm gonna do that.
Oh yeah,
real
the
quick.
link. Okay.
Well,
But yeah,
they
just,
say it don't be like that sometimes, but it did.
well, listen, we're Ascadians, which means tech problems is just part of the game. It's not our bag.
And
True.
I mean,
That's
it's part
why
of
we
mine,
reenact times before electricity.
and I reenact them to escape technology because oh, Julius, if you're looking to cut like sugar more, but like still have something with the sweet tooth, uh, Sam's Club Gourmet Gatherings Dark Chocolate Keto Clusters. It's chocolate covered quinoa, pumpkins, sunflower seeds, pecans, and almonds.
Not a big
And
sweet tooth guy. I'm really not a big sweets man.
that's fair. I got a bag yesterday when I went with my mother and sister. Only 3 grams of sugar and then 1 gram of added sugar. 13 grams of fat. 50 milligrams of sodium. It's really good, and it's not overly sweet, which I like because I feel
That
like
is nice.
even things sugar free can be overly sweet. Another one, um, is next time you're up around Washington area, I cannot recommend going to Rita's. Like I cannot recommend it enough.
All right, it's working now. Good.
Awesome. Cyrus, do you have any opinion on Rita's?
Rita's. Isn't that the gelato place?
Yeah, I just went there yesterday while I was shopping with my mother and sister.
There used to be a Rita's in this area, and it's pretty good. It's all right. You know.
I know there's one not too far from where you live because me, Ferruccio, and Frederica stopped at that plaza to get Frederica's a new cup.
Yeah,
Is it
over
a gelato place?
by Giant Eagle.
Because
Yeah,
Rita's full name
that's the
is
one.
Rita's Italian Ice and Frozen Custard, and frozen custard is not the same as gelato.
Yeah, but they
No,
do
but they have an
gelatos
item
too.
on the menu. They have an item on the menu called a gelati. It's Italian ice with their frozen custard layered. And that's what I had yesterday. I got it with their sugar-free dragon fruit flavor. I'd been doing good on my sugar intake, so I was like, I'll splurge. And then obviously it was made better because sugar-free dragon fruit.
Can't have dragon fruit.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's because it's for dragons.
You might like their Swedish fish flavor. Every time we go, we always go get my sister a quart of the Swedish fish flavor because she's usually at work.
Who likes the flavor of Swedish fish?
Oh, I do. I love it.
I think a lot of
No,
I
Swedish
think
fish tastes like how I imagine, like, the cars from Cars would think candy tastes.
I like to think that it's the best gummy candy, especially the Smart Sweets one, because it's not like an overly like rubbery gummy candy.
You would think the
Tastes like
cars from Cars would
plastic.
think candy tastes like the best gasoline.
Yeah,
No, because it tastes
full
like
of
plastic.
micromolecules. Well, wouldn't that be what they like though?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like what they think. Swedish fish tastes like what they think candy tastes like. Plastic.
I mean, fair, I guess.
Listen, we cannot get
I
on a
don't understand
tangent
what's so
about the
confusing.
Cars universe, because then we'll have to start talking about how 9/11 is canon to the Cars universe.
What about the Pope Mobile implying that there was an attempt on the car Pope's life?
Well,
Fair enough, I guess.
All right, we ready to kick this off?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, it's probably about that time to stop talking about
Yeah.
whatever this was.
Yeah.
Hello, Defense Academy, and welcome to the second episode of Steel Replay. Today we've got a special guest, Edward Bailgrave.
Thank you for having me on. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. And this
Yep.
episode we're going to be talking about Sinister Fencers, everything to do with left-handed. Got anything to say about that, Julius?
Well, obviously, as somebody who's not left-handed, I have kind of a differing perspective here from the two of you. So I'm kind of going to be the outside eyes in this episode, I think.
So, I guess we'll start off with, Ed, if you could describe kind of some generalities about your experience fencing as a left-handed person.
Okay. So I guess the biggest thing, and this is something that you taught me, is the struggle against the majority of fencers being right-handed. Considering the fact that my favorite style is buckler, it's hard for me to translate and adapt common manuals that everyone follows into a left-handed style. But I love the idea of the challenge of doing that.
Yeah, it's interesting for us because we can't just read the manuals as like stereo instructions like everyone
Yeah,
else can. We kind of got to take what they say and distill it into an idea and try to apply it that way.
yeah, it is. It's such a treat when you and I have a few passes, whether who goes to whom's home practice, and it's like, oh, I'm actually fighting someone in this. I can kind of put this manual into actual practice now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, really, you would think that I would almost want to like force myself to become a right-handed fencer, but I think I tried that for like a good 3 weeks, like just training my offhand, and I couldn't do it. Like it felt so foreign to me.
Well, it's hard because you've got to overcome a bunch of pre-built musculature that you have because you're left dominant.
Yeah, but here's the funny thing: I'm not like 100%. I'm pretty like in some cases I'm ambidextrous because I actually golf and throw right-handed.
Yeah, I have some of that experience with other things where like I play guitar right-handed, I shoot archery right-handed. Basically, if it's cheaper to learn it right-handed, I'll do that because if I have no preconceived ideas about the um the skill, why wouldn't I just learn it the cheaper way from the beginning?
That's fair. For me, I've never really ran into something like that because uh growing up, shooting guns, my father always said, "Do what's comfortable. We'll worry about whatever later." And it's never really been an issue for me. But I do see where monetary barriers could affect how you learn.
Oh yeah, I mean, left-handed guitars are oftentimes more than twice the price. It's crazy.
Oh wow.
It's why a lot of really, really famous left-handed guitarists would take a right-handed guitar and restring it left-handed, which you can
Okay.
do. It's not optimal because then all of your electronic pieces, like all the knobs and stuff, will be kind of in your way, but you can deal with it if you have to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the one time I picked up a guitar, I did it right-handed.
Something I wanted to ask, kind of towards the beginning of this episode, is how much struggle do you, Edward, have, and to a certain extent, Cyrus, how much did you have, and still have to some extent, learning techniques from right-handed people? Because there are a lot of times where I can get by with non-ideal teaching by just trying my best to copy somebody's movements exactly. And that, I imagine, must be more challenging when you have a different handedness?
So, being that my Dawn is right-handed, I can kind of speak on this with a lot of certainty. Uh, Translating the movements from a right-handed person as a lefty isn't that difficult, at least in my experience. It might just be because of how much of a hands-on learner I am, which is why I think I struggle with Treatise over actual, like, hands-on going a few passes.
So, what I'll say is a couple of things. In that, by the time I had a direct instructor, I was already very invested in studying the manuals myself. And so I already had somewhat of a leg up on I need to translate everything for my own uses, and that I can't just copy things. Now, there are a lot of things you can copy, but usually the drawback is the kill shot is a lot more tenuous because of how the body's angled. Um, a common right-handed technique will end up landing into all of that nice face of the torso, whereas if I do the same technique, it'll work, but if I don't have my point very precise, if I'm an inch off, I'll just miss their body entirely. Um, that and my Danya Elena, um, is a very very fantastic teacher. So, and she had a left-handed Dawn herself, so a lot of the potential barriers we might have had were already somewhat conquered by skill in teaching and previous experience. And I wonder if something similar like that has happened with Matthias and Edward, because I've had such a huge influence on Matthias since he started, and I always teach everyone in concepts instead of direct, you know, do this.
Okay. Um, when I've worked with Matthias, it was our relationship has been very cut and dry. It's this is what you're doing, this is what you should be doing. We'll walk through a few passes where I set you up for that so you can see and get a feel for the muscle memory, and then we'll just play around and fight. And then we'll kind of just in breaks talk about it, talk about things he wants to see, talk about things that I may be misunderstanding or misinterpreting. We work that out, and then we go right back to the drawing board, and it just repeats that same cycle again. And it is exactly what it is my entire reason I love the SEA and love fencing. It's just adding another piece to the proverbial puzzle.
Yeah, the thing is, things are different, but fight is still very much fight. So as long as you're willing to put in that little bit of extra effort to kind of make it all work together, there's no reason why a lefty can't take right-handed students or a righty can't take a left-handed student. I mean, I've yet to have a left-handed student.
Yeah. I agree. There's there shouldn't be necessarily a barrier from that. To me, I've seen it just as another challenge to overcome. And honestly, there's something interesting behind how righties teach lefties and vice versa because of how things have to be adapted.
So Julius, I want to ask you, as our token right-handed fencer here, what has your experience been fighting left-handed fencers? Because you've actually got a fair few around you in your area with me, Edward, Cluin, Marcus. I mean, that's what 60 to 70% of the really, really active ones in our entire kingdom.
It's true, and I mean, let's not forget Urinder, who's relatively ambidextrous and will regularly fight me left-handed when I see him. And I feel probably more comfortable fighting left-handed people than I estimate a lot of other right-handed people do because of that. I For lack of a better term, I feel very prepared to deal with your tricks and buffoonery. Um, because to some extent, I mean, no matter what you're doing, there's some level of, oh, what's this fight's going to be different, whether it's because you're using different weapons or because it's different handedness. And I see it as all kind of the same. So I'm used to fighting saber on rapier, and that is so supremely different. I'm so supremely different from what my opponent's doing in that fighting somebody who's left-handed doesn't really feel like it adds too big of a difference, you know. Um,
If I
with
can
that
add
being
on to that,
with that being said, I find that left-handed people tend to be very almost bimodal, right? I don't recall a lot of mediocre left-handed fencers for their time in, right? Because I've fought them outside of Ethelmark too. I fought them at I fought ones from Out of Kingdom at Pennsic and at Gulf Wars, and I find that either they tend to do very very well after putting in a good amount of engagement, or they just never really have it click. Um, like you'll see a lot of stagnation in the middle with right-handed fencers that I do not see in left-handed fencers. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a statistical advantage to being left-handed in that 1 out of 10 people in the population is left-handed. That means that, on average, I will get to face 9 right-handed opponents for every 1 left-handed opponent you get to face. I know, it's a shocking number. It takes your breath away.
yeah,
I guess my point is more though. I don't see how that affects the middle ground. I see why that would bring up the average for sure, but I'm not sure why that seems to make the middle disappear.
Well, it's because if you and we'll get into this in a moment, but the kind of core loop of left-handed versus right, specifically fencing, it's if you understand what's going on, it's very simple. Uh, but if you don't understand what's going on, you're probably going to get trounced and trounced really easily, and you're going to feel very discouraged. Does that make sense?
I guess that's a fair point.
Ed, you had something to add, didn't you?
yeah. For me, I think that facing left-handed opponents, for how many right-handed I face, I actually have I just feel differently. It I have to adapt it feels like a lot to face a left-handed fighter. I remember countless times, especially fighting Cluin, because I don't get to fight Cluin as often. And every time I go to fight Cluin, it's just at first it takes my brain a little bit to remember like something doesn't feel right about this. And then I'm like, oh, that's why it's left-handed. I have to fight this lefty on lefty, not lefty on right like I've been doing. And to me, it's a very it feels like I have to make such it feels like a manual switch that I have to make when I go up against a lot of left-handed fighters.
Oh, I totally understand that because I get a lot of that too, where I have to, like, I'll pick up on if they're fighting left hand forward, at the start of a fight, but then it's a whole process of like, okay, let's engage the knowledge I have and not just the kind of muscle memory, bread and butters kind of stuff that I do all the time. I have to now think about what I'm doing and try to apply things that I'd love to do if I was right-handed. And you got to think
Okay.
like your experience like that facing another left-handed fencer, that's what right-handeds get against us all the time. They have to recalibrate of like, oh, this is weird, like we're mirrored and we're on the same side. What? a lot of my stuff doesn't work. We keep, like I'm trying to bind them up, and I'm just kind of sliding off because we're in line with each other. You know,
Yeah. What really messes me up is going back to what I was saying about Buckler, is when my sword is in line with a right-handed person, I have to almost manually engage my parry in into the fight unless I'm fighting that pure I-33 Midgard that I used to fight for so long. But what's actually interesting is Matthias, be it even because it was a very beginner tool to get me used to fighting dagger, what I've actually found is leading with my parry pretty much null and voids that initial concern of, oh, like my parry is going to be off their line.
it's
You'll see
interesting
in a
you
couple
say that,
videos.
because you're gonna get a big dose of that kind of thought process when we get towards the middle of the footage we're gonna watch.
Okay.
So let's talk a little bit. Let's do just a real light crash course on the basics of left versus right. Um, so when you have an opponent that's left-handed and left hand forward versus a right hand dominant opponent, what happens is you're mirrored. So it's exactly the same on both sides, which means your swords are in line. And what you don't get that right on right gets is uh, when they fight, their swords oppose each other's offhands. And uh, basically, the general line of your tip when you put it online goes into the flat face of the opponent's body. We don't get that. When we point at an opponent, we're pretty much entirely focused directly on their right flank, right? So this, since it's mirrored, it works exactly the same for both sides, which is very, very neat for teaching. So the idea is, when I face off against a right-handed opponent, I'm my closest target area is everything on their right flank, and everything towards the middle to the left flank is a terrible idea because their body slopes away from my arm and my sword, which means it's basically impossible to actually hit it, especially if they make any amount of movement. But since we're mirrored, we're actually closer together than a normal fight would be. So oftentimes, and I know you both have experience with this, fact is, when you set up left on right, you can usually tag an opponent's forearm if they leave it exposed with just an extension of the arm, not even a lunge.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's a really, really classic lefty bread and butter, is that forearm's out there, and so many right-handed fighters, if they don't have a huge amount of experience against lefties, they tend to use these I called it like a pulled in guard, where basically they sit in kind of a mid between terza and quarta, and they've pulled their arm into the center of their body, in line with like the center, like their belly button, you know? And it's because they're used to bringing the sword over to oppose a right-handed fencer who's coming from that side. But when you do it against a left-handed fencer, you just like reveal your entire forearm, your elbow, the top of your shoulder. It's all juicy, juicy targets. And the measure is different because both feet are on the same side and on the presented side. We're generally, I've done a couple of tests, and it's generally you're about 3 to 4 inches closer to each other than a normal right on right or left on left fight would be. And that has huge implications for reaction time and trying to get a correct parry, and other things you can do as far as how much you feel threatening to your opponent. What are your thoughts on this, Ed?
I'm sorry, you kind of cut out there a little bit. Could you repeat it, please?
So I talked a bit about how when you have left presented and right presented against each other, the measure is about 3 to 4 inches closer to each other than a normal same-handed fight would be, and that causes all kinds of interesting things for what you can reach with minimal effort, how much commitment you have to put in to actually strike an opponent, and how much you can fool an opponent into thinking that they're safe with kind of diffusion techniques, even though you're much closer than they would ever want you to be. And I'm just curious how much you've experienced that in your training.
Okay. Um, there are two people that I've specifically fought that I've had to train myself uh to essentially not set up within their measure, or kind of remind myself that I have to give myself more room than I think that I would need. And those two fighters are Genshin and Ferruccio. When Ferruccio and I fight, we typically like walk back a few steps and then like slowly approach each other. Right, roughly when I think I'm in engagement range, I fully set up and sort of wait, and that ends up being my detriment when I fight Ferruccio, because he is very much a strike first, whereas I am a wait and punish style fighting. And against Ferruccio, it barely works. Like 9 times out of 10, I am losing that fight. With Genshin, he is a hand sniper through and through, and every time I think I'm fine, he just comes over, barely does any sort of extension, taps my wrist, and I'm already down a limb. Fighting those two specifically has made me very much more conscious of my measure, especially as a left-handed person.
So, kind of on the same topic, Cyrus, you've always told me that it took you a ridiculously long amount of time to realize that you were very consistently starting in your opponent's measure when you were new.
Yep, that's true.
Do you think that this had a large role to play in why you were starting in opponent's measure? Was because you were trying to replicate how far away right-handed opponents would start, which would be too close for you?
Oh, undoubtedly, undoubtedly. I mean, even if I wasn't like directly trying to replicate how far fights I was seeing would be, the fact that I just didn't understand that uh it's just much closer, even though it doesn't feel much closer, had everything to do with the fact that for the longest time when I started, I'd enter a tourney, I'd square up against the opponent, the marshal would call Aeon, I'd get hit on go, and then I'd have to walk out of the field. And that was my experience for the longest time when I started. And it took me going to a White Heart with it had to be indoors because the ground was too mushy, and the space they have in there is always just very, very small, especially if they set up all these tables and they make a list inside that. Pretty much everybody starting in everybody else's measure. And that tourney is when I realized, wow, like I'm way too close to my opponent. Is that why they're just striking me on go? And that changed everything for me. I'd say probably figuring out that piece of information was one of the biggest open doors to getting better that I ever experienced.
Right. Well, I think now's probably a good time to start looking at video.
Well, before we do that, just quickly, I'm going to read a couple of quotes from what the treatises had to say about lefties. Um, because a couple of them did actually talk about what happens if you fight a left-handed opponent. In particular, we're going to talk about Manziolini, in the Bolognese tradition in the early 1500s. Capoferro wrote about it in the early 1600s, and so did Joseph Swetnam. So Manciolini just had one, real simple piece of advice. He said, during combat with a left-handed person, stepping continuously against his sword is the optimal protection. And when he throws a reverso, which is a kind of a horizontal cut coming from the body side, when he throws a reverso, throwing a mandrito, which is the opposite from the non-body side towards the body, to his sword hand, or when he throws a mandrito, throwing a reverso to his hand or to his sword arm, it is not to be doubted that victory is assured. So basically, all Manciolini had to say was, if they throw a cut at you, you throw the opposite cut and you aim for their arm. Which pretty much in lines with what we were talking about earlier, is it not?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, sounds right.
Because that forearm is the closest thing to you, and it takes the least amount of commitment to strike. So when they're committed to an action, you try to take that arm out, and once they're down their arm in real fight, it's over pretty much. Here's what Capoferro had to say. Moreover, you must be careful that, having to deal with a left-handed person, and he's standing with his right foot forward, so refused in our typical lingo, you will have to put yourself to him at the encounter with your left foot forward, with your sword low and refused withdrawn, weapons on the same side, so that doing such, you will put it into your adversary's mind that he will be unable to throw any blow which will not give itself to be defended. What are your thoughts on that?
Edward, would you like to comment first, or would you like me to?
You go ahead. It takes me a little bit to process through like written treatise, which is but I think I have a general idea. I'm curious to hear your thoughts though.
Right. So you're trying to put your opponent in a space where basically any move they make is a bad one. It's the ideal goal in any sport, whether it's chess, where it has a name that I'm not remembering, whether it's
Oh, you mean a
whether it's
Zugzwang?
football, whether it's fencing. Yeah, Zugzwang, thank you. Where any move you make is a bad one, and that's essentially what he's talking about here. Is make it so that way you are defending as much of your body as possible, so that way, when your opponent does strike, you have a defense into a very strong offense in minimal tempo, which I think it's a very reliable. I mean, it's very general advice. He's advising here to fight more defensively, which makes sense against an opponent that you don't get to fight a lot of replicants of their style, right? I mean, if you don't, like you were talking about earlier, if you get nine right-handed fights for every one left-handed fight I get, that means you have 9 times as much time behind the blade as I do in relevant, in fighting opponents similar to me, that I fight opponents similar to you. I.e., it makes sense for me to fight a little bit more defensively and hope to capitalize on your mistake than try and put myself out there where you can punish a mistake made by somebody who doesn't have a lot of time. Does that make sense at all?
Yep. That makes total sense. To me, when I heard that, when I heard how you're reading it, the first thing that came to mind was the concept of the iron door when I discussed Buckler a few years ago with Master Donnan. I remember I was questioning the concept of why I would ever want to go refused, because in my head, that doesn't really give you as many offensive options. So Donnan just he's like, okay, fine, let's test that. and he very quickly showed me that just because I was standing in refused and kind of out of measure didn't mean that he was totally out of offensive options.
Right. As long as you have a reason behind what you're doing, it's not necessarily a bad decision. I find it interesting that Capoferro seems to think that a left-handed person fighting refused is annoying enough that you want to basically throw full defense at them to discourage them from doing it. It seems like he wants to try to kind of force them to re-engage in a presented way, and that gives you a better chance of defeating them. I mean, he doesn't really talk about it much more. He starts talking about what you can do from specific strikes, which I won't get into because that's, it's not super relevant to what we're doing here. But I find it interesting that that's what he found was important to write about. The last thing we'll talk about is what Joseph Swetnam had to say about lefties. He says, a left hand, skillful, hath odds against a right-handed man. Reason is that a left-handed man is continually used to a right hand, but a right hand doth seldom meet with a left-handed man. Another reason is, a right-handed man, when he doth open his right side of his head by offering play, although he bear his dagger to the right ear, yet it doth not defend that side, so sure, not so strong as it doth the left side. But indeed, as long as the right-handed man lieth in his guard of defence upon his backsword, for the backsword is the chiefest point of defence against a left-handed man. Therefore, when you encounter against a left-handed man, you must be careful and heed, if you do after play, to recover your guard again presently, and be in the defence of your backsword guard. But of this I will speak more at large hereafter. So, it's actually documented period, the statistical discrepancy between left-handed and right-handed fencers, that the left hand will always face more right-handed people. Swetnam highlights it, and he also highlights the fact that, yeah, you've got a dagger as a right-handed person, but it doesn't actually cover anything relevant. You have to rely on the strength of your sword and your ability to block. He seems to put a high importance on a false edge parry against left-handed people, which makes sense to me. So,
I can speak to that.
yeah, what do you think about that, Julius?
I think that if I didn't have a strong false edge parry against, I would fail against almost every left-handed opponent I face. And I understand that a big part of that comes from the fact that I come from a saber tradition, and in that, right, your offhand is pretty much just for grabbing your opponent's blade and hopefully beating them with it, or doing something, getting in the way, making a cut not rip you open in the guts, and instead you lose a hand. It's very much a sacrificial lamb in a lot of saber traditions, or get it ready to shoot you is the real ideal. Hence why a lot of saber traditions have it, on the side or behind the back, because that's the real goal, is grab and get your gun out. But I'm very if I don't have that very strong parry you away from me just with a quick wrist movement with the false edge, you would very consistently see me getting the top side of my forearm getting cut open and ripped open. And in a real fight, they're not going to let you step back and honorably switch hands. You have a fraction of a second to do it while they're trying to murder you, so you really need to be very comfortable in that quick, and emphasis on quick, parry with that false edge of just get the blade away from me.
Any thoughts on that, Edward?
First off, more reinforcing Julius's point there. A lot of times, and this is why I struggle. This is why I love and struggle fighting against Julius a lot. Is how much he thrives in blade contact, and how just a split second determines whether or not I get the kill or not, or can at most force a double, because the reaction time, whether it's the true or false edge of how it's of how like Saber of how he Saber fights that constrained snap style, it's insane. But to speak more on the general quote, I feel I don't I feel like the way I fight right-handed opponents, I end up losing. I end up putting myself in a bad spot already because I try to go for the inside line if I can. However, I think with how I've improved over the last few months, I've sort of given truth to that fact of you need to have that strong false edge parry, especially because of like the shot I've been hitting so much recently, where it's I go really wide on their right side, place, and then either push or pull right along the right side of their head. And there have been times I've
I just find that
there have been
funny
times
because it's something that I do a lot.
you know, Fredericus actually, he's gotten so used to it. If he's fighting Dagger, which is what he's claimed to be one of his worst forms, he just knows my attack pattern so much. He knows as soon as I go to throw that, he preemptively throws his dagger on his right side, and he knows 9 times out of 10 he's gonna catch it, unless there have been like I think 3 total occasions where I feinted that shot and immediately took inside and stabbed him right in the chest.
Yeah. Nothing more fun than throwing a nice thrust, and when it doesn't land, you're like, oh, well, I'll just turn this into a cut to your head.
Now, see, I have the opposite problem where I go from that cut and then spin it downwards into their inside and then make it a thrust.
Yeah. Yeah. You can do that. I'll throw the thrust first, go for the false edge cut, and I'll turn that naturally into an inside Stromazone. And if they don't defend, then I can go back in for that centerline thrust.
I see, I see.
So let's start looking at some lovely footage. Because it's interesting that you mentioned that you were having some trouble attacking the inside line. Because generally for lefties, it's a bad idea unless you really know how to do it. Generally, the outside line is way safer because that's where you can dominate your opponent's blade, and it puts you directly in line with how their body slopes. So you don't have the problem when you're on the inside line that you'll throw for an attack and their parry will push you into the slope of their body. So not only are they pushing you out of the way, but their body's getting farther away because of the slope of their guard. But the first video we're going to look at, actually, and let me switch over to the footage on screen. So the first footage we're going to look at here is Cluin versus Elena. This was many years ago at Ethelmart Grand Tournament in a single sword tournament. And Cluin is one of those lefties that's actually really, really good at attacking at the inside line the right way. So if you're both ready to go, we can start looking at some footage.
Yeah, I'm
I'm
absolutely
always ready.
All right. And are you familiar with Watch Together, Ed?
No, I'm
So-
assuming we all have to hit play or...
No. So the nice thing about Watch Together, and this is why we use it, is it's community controlled. So if any of us hits the play or pause button, it will play for and pause for everyone else.
Oh, that's actually
So if
very
you
nice.
have a
I need
thought
start
and you
using
want to
these.
pause, you pause and it'll pause for the rest of us. It's like we're watching a video together.
Okay.
So when I hit play right here, it should start playing for you.
Yep.
So nice quick little bout to start out with. And I'll roll it back for us. And I'm
Yep.
going to slow it
I mean,
down.
he starts off with just a very quick initial offense, which is nice.
I'm going to slow it
Yeah.
down to about half speed. And if you watch, he takes most of his attacks from the inside line. But the way he does it is he'll shoot right straight down Elena's blade. And he's often he starts going picking at that forearm, and when you feel like you have to deal with that, then he starts going for the face. And when you feel like you have to deal with that, he goes kind of in between them and hits her right in the collarbone.
I see.
So I'll play it one more time. What do you think about that, Ed?
It's interesting because that's something I've never really thought about. With me, with how I fence, I just generally it's very like binary. Just okay, he's doing this, I'm doing this. This looks open, take the shot. I don't really think about it of just shoot for one line and then either deviate from it or
It's really a nice strategy that he employs, that he's like, okay, you need to watch out for your right arm. Okay, now that you're watching out for your right arm, you need to watch out for your face. Okay, now that you're watching out for your right
Yeah.
arm and your face, now I'm going to throw for your left hand. Now that you're watching for all those three things, I'm going to make a hard commit and I'm going to hit you in the collarbone. He essentially
He's diverting
overwhelms his
focus,
opponents
and he
with
keeps on
multiple
prodding,
threats.
and he just keeps on prodding until he forces them to become too overwhelmed and makes an opening. Very good strategy. I mean, it works.
yeah.
Where you do not see an opening, make one.
So, the next fight we're going to watch. This is Robert McEwen as Queen's Rapier champion in Heroic Champs at Pennsic 2022 against the champion of Atlantia. And obviously Robert is right-handed, but his opponent is left-handed. And I thought that was very interesting. So I need to switch back to full speed. But when I was looking for fights for us to look at, I found this one to be actually quite neat. So already there's something to talk about in that the left-handed opponent here starts utilizing aspects of that lefty range we talk about, the difference in measure. He starts picking up high. I don't think I rewound it far enough. Right. So they enter engagement, and he throws an attack for high. It's kind of like what Cluen did, where it's like, well, you need to pay attention to your right arm. I'm going to get your forearm.
Yeah.
And then he throws another one here. And you see he's like, your forearm, actually your foot. And that's such a common little sneaky trick you can do. Because the foot's not actually that much farther away than the forearm is.
Got a little bit of messy engagement right there.
Well, you know.
Yeah. I don't know if this is because I'm a new fighter or because I'm a left-handed fighter. The the idea of feigning and forcing your opponent to be thinking of all these different areas and then hard committing is something I never would have thought of. I have been thinking of fencing as just this large game of like rock paper scissors try to find an opening, and I think it's, to me, in my head, it seems like a detriment to how I fight. Because for the longest time, I think, Julius, you can attest to this, I have been saying I need to vary up how I fight. And I've been trying to do that. And recently, I guess you can say I've kind of been doing that, but I've never thought of it in such just a short scale. I guess
Well,
what I'm trying to say.
so about the varying up to try and hit an opponent thing, because that's a very universal thing, and it gets easier as you improve. I mean, I can definitely attest to that as somebody who's improved, hopefully, a lot over the last 3 or so years. Uh, you'll it is challenging because if we're using the rock paper scissors metaphor, you're starting off with rock paper scissors, but you can throw out 100 different things, and you start knowing 5. So at first you just kind of keep on throwing out the 5 things, and then you start learning, oh wait, no, okay, this doesn't work against this, and this doesn't work against that. So you start trying to modify and just beat out whatever is just trying to counter whatever you find just by brute forcing your method through. When you get a little bit better, you can start thinking about, okay, forget about throwing rock because I see scissors. I want him to throw scissors so I can throw rock, so I'm going to keep feinting paper. I'm just going to keep trying to make him think, it's going to be paper, it's going to be paper, it's going to be paper, it's going to be paper. Oh, sorry, it was rock. And it's those little tricky things that you can do. That
Yeah.
Trying to get your opponent thinking about a different tactic, trying to get your opponent distracted on, oh, this part of you's open, and this part of you's open, and this part of you's open, and oh, I didn't hit any of those parts. I hit the 4th part of you that only became open because you were focusing about the other 3 parts. It's a skill that's, it's one of the harder things to improve, in my experience, anyway.
All right.
So it's kind of emblematic of where you are in your journey, which is not a problem. But when it comes to a technique, any technique you can think of, there's 3 distinct stages. There's the perform the technique correctly stage, where you're trying to get all the mechanics of it down correctly. It's a very, very physical thing, right? The second
Okay.
stage is applying it correctly. So you go up against opponent, you do it mechanically correctly, and you apply it at the right time, and that you get your reward of your opponent dead or their arm taken or whatever. Say we'll use like the constraint for an example. So, you got to learn the mechanics of how to get crossing leverage and edge, and then once you have those things down, it's now applying it in the right circumstances against opponent. But once you get that down, your opponent is not willing to give you whatever you want. Are they not? They, in fact, want to give you absolutely nothing that you want.
Yeah.
So now the game becomes, how do I trick them into giving me the situation I want? And that's where this kind of mind game part comes in, right? Because if I want to hit them in the toe, I'd rather them be thinking about their forearm.
Yeah.
And if I want to hit them in the forearm, I want them thinking about their toe, and their head, and their leg, and all of these things. Because at a certain point, they won't be able to keep track of all of it. There's only so much you can defend at once. And if you give them multiple things to focus on, they're now reacting to you as opposed to providing an offense that you have to react to. And this is kind of the basics of what we call obedience. Once your opponent is in obedience, the fight is essentially over. You just gotta keep them there and then hit them.
Okay.
I see that we have another lefty in the chat. The Andrew the Good is here. But we'll continue with Robert versus the Atlantean.
Okay.
So, one of the other things I want to highlight from our left-handed combatant here is you'll see he fights a lot for that outside line and trying to attack from that outside line. And between both of them, there's a lot of just really, really tight, strong defense in basically a small circle you could make with your arm.
Yeah.
A lot of left versus right fighting is it's very tight on how much space it covers. Realistically.
Oh yeah, I mean the space of this fight covers a strip less than 6 inches wide mostly. I mean height varies a lot here, but
Right, so Robert was defeated by our left-handed fencer. Go lefties.
Huzzah.
poor Robert. A sad day for Ethelmark.
So I kind of want to highlight what happened in the end there because it's just an interesting little maneuver that happens. So I brought it down to half speed, and our left-handed opponent is engaging from the inside. Robert drops his guard, and pressure is being built with gaining measure. Swords come up to meet, a blow is parried, and the left-handed opponent makes this big sweeping attack from Prima across the body. But then to get the thrust, all he does is straighten the arm back out, and it puts him right in line with Robert's chest again.
It's a very angular set of movements here, right? So we're talking about
I will play.
he knew where he wanted his arm to end up, and he knew that to do that, all he would really need to do is in finishing his first attack, extend. And he made Robert think he was safe. He made him think he was overcommitted to a movement, and Robert was not safe. Our Atlantean friend here was not overcommitted, or at least not as much as Robert was hoping. And it just he lied very well.
Well, it's real nice because he comes in from the outside after Robert's recovering, and he throws this big hooking attack. He actually gets around the back of Robert's blade and throws it towards the left side of Robert's body. And the thing is, Robert naturally wants to kind of recover to a terza, but his opponent just follows the arc that he just came from again, right to the chest.
It's very nice. It's very good.
What are your thoughts on that, Ed?
Can't really give too much. This is, as a new fencer, I feel like the only thing I can really say for certain is it's interesting to see how well the Atlantean fighter was able to feign that big wide attack and then just make one small adjustment and that's what got the kill.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I mean, honestly, a lot of all he had to do there after that hook to get Robert out of the way is squeezing the hand around the sword will pull it back in line. It's surprising how much just a little technique like that can do for the distance that your point will travel.
Mikhail Strzelczewski talks about that. I know I talk about him endlessly, but he is out of period. But he talks about exactly that. Just that final squeeze of the hand can deliver an immense amount of cutting force, or instead of delivering cutting force, it can just realign you, and that's really useful at the back end of a cut, the back end of a parry, or it can be useful just to get you into place. That kind of squeeze and an extension is very, very effective.
I can agree to that. Sorry.
No, you go. I was gonna move on, so you tell your thought.
I agree with that a lot because even just small adjustments, because I remember you and I, Julia, since we fight with Espadas, that one adjustment you showed me where all I did was start to pinch the ricasso of my blade, that improved my blade presence and blade strength so much. And that I feel like a little kid seeing a magic trick for the first time every time I remember that small little mechanic. Because oftentimes I forget it, like, oh, this is comfortable. Wait a minute, no, I need to be doing this. Oh, now my blade's more present.
Yeah, and the particular squeeze we're talking about here is actually towards the back of the handle, because that'll deliver that forward presence, whereas that squeeze at the front is more about keeping yourself in tight and strong movements, whereas that is more for very powerful flashes of momentum. And the nice thing is, because you have that squeeze, the momentum, it has a determined final destination that you can practice repeatedly. If you just clutch that, eventually you will figure out it always ends in the exact same place, because it has to. The sword can't phase through your hand. And so you can know, okay, if my hand's here, if I squeeze, it'll pull me forward, and then all I need to do is extend my arm. It's very, very clean.
Yeah.
Right, so the next thing we're gonna look at is Oblate Trapon, who is a Master of Defense from the Mid-Realm, versus Master Christian Delaney at a Silver Volcani practice many years ago. And
2018 question mark.
well, I wasn't 100% sure when this happened. It was either 2017 or 2018. It's hard to tell. I know I was a free sculler at this time because there's video of me fighting Chris at this practice, but exactly when it was, I don't know. And unfortunately, when I made everything public on the channel, it essentially erased what the upload dates were. But
Very much a shame, very much.
so slightly annoying, but whatever. But here's where, Ed, you will get a good taste of what you can do as a left-handed fighter if you choose to use refused as your main way of presenting yourself to opponent, because that's Chris's whole thing. I mean, he does both, but he usually will engage from a refused position to start with.
You
Okay.
wonder why Capo Ferro found it so annoying.
And this section of video is long. I put the whole thing in because I couldn't bear to cut it. So we can always skip past some of this.
Okay.
And we saw a little bit of hand sniping there from Master Trap, which is very good.
Yeah.
Something I'll say about
when you push that.
as a I'll say a subject matter expert on Chris's style. What he's looking for when he takes these refused positions in the dagger forward is he's trying to create a binary choice where the opponent either has to engage on the left side of his dagger or the right side of his dagger. And either way, he's going to parry to that side and come in with a thrust. He's essentially trying to limit their options as much as humanly possible.
That sounds like a concept that I've heard Yernder and Matthias talk about. I believe it's a German dagger concept where you fight with the dagger in your dominant hand and almost fight refused. I don't remember much more like of the finer
God.
details, but
That's
a lot of it was
just so
based.
classic right there. If we watch that again, parry, snap that
Ooh.
forearm.
Mhm.
Oh, it warms my lefty heart.
Yeah.
Thousands of forearms scream out and are suddenly silenced.
I mean, these are the kind of things that you're capable of doing when you're like really a master at the combat that you do. Not letting that very quick hand snipe come in again. He knows his opponent's range now. He's not going to permit it.
Something else you'll notice I want to kind of highlight, and this is just a general thing across being lefty, is when you are in a presented position and you want your secondary to be active, it forces you, as you can see here, and the audience can see because they can see my mouse, but I'm kind of running along Chris's shoulders here. If you want that dagger in play from a presented position, it forces you to be very square. And when you square up like that, you present the whole face of your body towards your opponent. So you're a larger target. So there are drawbacks. There's benefits and drawbacks. You get to play with the dagger more, but there's more of you to hit.
Master Marcus is one who is very willing to take that risk on the regular. And he makes it extremely successful. I mean, there's not a ton of people out there in Ethelmark right now who consistently choose to fight, who are left-handed, who consistently choose to fight with that active of an offhand. But he doesn't. He makes it work exceptionally well. Which I consistently find one of the more impressive feats of him.
Marcus pretty much almost completely works in a twisted guard, doesn't he? Where the dagger is actually more forward than the sword, as far as like right shoulder is forward.
Mm-hmm. Which I find very, very curious. I've tried to ask him about it before, and he has reasoning. I don't want to make it seem like he doesn't. His reasoning makes very little sense to me, but obviously it works for him. I mean, he wants to get it involved so that way he can use it as more of a protective item and keep his sword out of blade contact.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, is one of the number one reasons he's top on my op list. Big blade contact fan here. And obviously it works very, very well for him. I mean, results speak.
Yeah, I imagine, I mean, when I fight Marcus, it's a very different animal, so I have to make assumptions on how he fights pretty much everyone else. I imagine, like you said, he's getting the dagger out there. It's being a huge player. The sword is withdrawn, and you can't play with it. And I assume he's relying on picking them up with the dagger, and then a quick hip rotation to get the shoulders to rotate fast so that he can engage all that length he has from a real presented position. And when you're twisted that far all the way into a twisted guard, like I said earlier, the fact that you're already closer than people think, and then you withdraw the sword that far back, people will psychologically take it as not that threatening because it's not out there in their face. And it's a fallacy. It's just as threatening. but you don't feel like it is. And so you might be willing to get a little bit closer. And once you get that little bit closer, now when you do pretty much anything, you don't have the time to solve your problems once they start stacking up.
Hopefully we have some footage of him in the mix to talk about him a little bit more in depth. But
Marcus, unfortunately, I didn't grab any of his.
we don't exactly have a lot of footage of him to work with. So
I had a couple from the QRC that Ludovic won, but I just didn't think any of it.
it wasn't very.
I
Good
don't know.
footage.
It just did. I watched it and he fights well. I think he defeats Niccolo in one of them, but I didn't feel like it was enough emblematic of lefty on righty stuff to show. I think he just finds an opening and just one shots.
Well, that happens a lot.
It's okay. Maybe in the future we can have a Sinister Fencer Part 2, and we'll bring on a mod level left-handed fencer and talk about some of their footage and what they think about when they fight, in contrast to how maybe I would.
It'd be awesome. Be great.
Yeah.
So, I'll talk about this.
Yeah.
His foot positioning is one that perplexes me. Just on the regular, in general. But this is really emblematic of it, right? And I understand he's very prepared for kind of springing forward, but he's prepared for springing forward with his dagger, right? He's tangled himself up in a way, I guess.
You would think, but when it comes to Chris, it's never that simple.
Right, so what I was trying to get at was why.
Why would he do this? Like this frame we're looking at right here?
Why is he in this position? Yeah.
Well, surprisingly, he has a lot of options from here. I mean, he's obviously coiled to come forward. Trap's running away, so he kind of wants to keep the pressure on, or at least have the option to. But he's not so tangled up in himself that he wouldn't have any recourse. Because he's brought that back foot so far towards his right side, okay? If you notice that, his left heel is actually probably mostly clear of his toes, so he could pass backwards if he really wanted to.
I guess so.
I mean, we could see what he does with it. It mostly just relaxes, but
Oh, when your opponent runs halfway across a basketball court,
Chris was very good at multi-intention chases, where he'll throw an attack, recoil, throw another attack, boom, 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 strike, 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 So those coiling motions are very, very important for that. He stands so picturesque.
Yeah.
He manages to make tall boots seem like high heels. I don't know if that's a good way of describing it, but there's just a certain sex appeal to it.
I was wondering if you were gonna say the S word there.
Oh yes.
I was waiting for you to call him sexy.
And the thing you'll learn if you ever try to replicate what he's doing here is your thighs burn like hell.
Yeah. Heck, even trying to replicate what Niccolo does burns my thighs.
So, I want to get before he starts moving that foot again. But do you see this position he's taken? Roll it back a little bit. That's not far enough. So he comes back refused. You see this? And then he
Mhm.
steps
Yep.
outward with the left foot.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Ed, I know Julius probably has an idea of what's going on here because I'll do this occasionally when I try to mimic Chris. What do you think this is for?
If it were me and I was trying to replicate this, it would be for a step on Master Trap's left side, using his sword to constrain and go for that infight. But that obviously brings several concerns being on his dagger side, which would be very, very problematic if he wasn't ready to deal with it. However, this is coming from someone who does that with Buckler, where I'm purposely putting myself in this to set up for a transfer. So I don't know how well that would actually transfer to Dagger.
So you could do what Chris is doing here with Buckler. It absolutely would work much the same way. It'd be slightly more tenuous because you don't have keons, but you could do it. The reason why he takes that left step with the left foot is he's actually, you wouldn't believe it if I tell you, he's lunging. What he's done is he's reversed the lunge. So normally you would throw the front foot forward, right? And so it's the one
Yeah.
that's bent at a 90-degree angle, and the back foot is straight. If you notice, he throws that left foot to the side, so it's the one bent and the other foot is straight. And all you have to do is move your center of weight and you change it to a normal thrust. And that's what he's looking for. He's waiting for Trap to engage in. He's going to get that dagger parry, and then he's just going to shift his weight, and it's like he lunged the whole time. It's
Oh.
really, really sneaky. And you could do the same thing with a buckler. You know, you set up that position, you wait for them to engage, you parry out with the buckler, and then you bring your sword in.
I see.
And if they don't fall for it, you just step right out of it.
Oh my, that is... Wow.
It's very nice. It's just
I always feel like I'm the worst person to watch because everything looks so beautiful to me, yet I'm at like a loss for words. I can't really offer any good commentary.
There's something to be said about a smoothness to your fight.
Chris is definitely very, very smooth, and he accomplishes that by setting himself up for most of the pluckier bits of a fight, and setting those up before the movement, before the really pretty kill shot, and getting everything ready so all he has to do is one very, very clean movement. Whether that's just extending his arm forward, whether that's just a lean, whether it's just a step, whether it's, just a sweep out. He's very, very ready to just shorten whatever he wants to do down to one movement.
That is a good
Uh,
catch, Andrew the Good. It's something that I take for granted and I don't usually think about. But you are right. When he does take that left step, because it pulls his chest to the left, it puts his dagger in direct opposition to their sword, while also kind of denying their dagger any play.
Ooh, that is very true. That's a really good point.
That's beautiful.
Okay.
That's a great observation because I know that to be true, but I just kind of take it so for granted I didn't even think about mentioning it.
I mean, here we just have some kind of pre-fight movements,
Mm-hmm.
some setup.
So, Ed, if you ever wanted to know what I wanted to be as a fencer, I mean, you're looking at it in orange right there.
I see.
Chris was the reason I bought my first sword.
Huh.
You never heard that story yet? It's a good story. I'll have to tell you sometime.
I've not heard it.
And Master Trap here is someone who is very comfortable dealing with left-handed shenanigans. So,
Oh yeah. Trap's
I mean,
so
he has
interesting in that like they're such a good foil to each other because Chris is everything of like elegant nobility, and Trap somehow is able to capture this like masterful peasantness. Does that make sense? Where he's very calm and very plain in the way he moves. It almost seems like anyone could move that way, but it's done perfectly.
Yeah,
The sneaky thing
it's very
about
it is
Edward
Trap
Man.
that
something I
you
noticed.
might not realize, and you can kind of pick it up in the way that he moves a lot of times, is he was a professional dancer.
Interesting.
I can't remember for sure. I'm not sure if it was ballet or something else.
Real quick, this is something I wanted to mention a while ago. Why won't it let me pause?
Oh, there you
There you
go.
Um, that dagger, like presented method I was mentioning that Matthias had taught me is exactly what we've seen. Is exactly what we've seen here. It's in my head and the way I was explained. Uh, it gives the illusion that your opponent has to fight through that dagger first. And in my case, it got me much more used to having that dagger as an active parry object because in my case, I came from Buckler being just very passive sit and wait. And to me, it's helped immensely as far as actually getting it in the fight. Even as a lefty, like it feels very much active and in concert with my blade.
Well, in the case of somebody who's left-handed as opposed to right-handed, which is different from Matthias, you very literally have to get through that dagger first. There's not really a route of attack that I'm not gonna pass by that thing in a way, in a meaningful way, rather. So I have
Yeah.
to acknowledge it in some way in my attack. I might not have to really do anything about it if I can get if you're lazy with it, or I might not have to do much with it if I can just position myself a little bit better, but I have to acknowledge it. I have to be prepared for it being there. On a right-handed opponent who brings themselves forward, it's not going to be as engaged to the fight, right? I can deal with it. I can just avoid it. It's not ideal. I should still be acknowledging it, but I can, in some rare cases, afford not to. When you're left-handed, it's there. I have to acknowledge it. I have to deal with it. It is presented to me. It's a threat that I have to worry about.
Yeah.
And that's very much his logic here, right? Is they have to do something about it, and while they're trying to figure out what to do, I'm gonna do something. Or while they do
Yeah.
something, it's gonna be wrong, and I'm gonna do something about it. Very proper.
Mm-hmm.
You can see right there is a technique that I've been trying to employ where uh my blade stays low, so that way my dagger again has to be fought through. And it's one of the reasons I struggle because when I do that, I always try to throw on the inside line and end up just paying the price for it.
think this is right about.
I
Maybe not.
think this might be the last one.
So, something to mention when we're talking about blades being down, and you'll see so many lefties do this because they don't want their blade messed with, because it's kind of a death knell to have it kind of dominated. When I have my blade down, I am imagining in 3D space where I'm going to go when I extend so that I have control of their blade when I come in. So, there is a plan for coming in back into action when I'm down there.
Yeah, there it goes.
Okay.
Oh God, why?
Okay. So,
Oh
no,
no!
so-
This
so
was
this
my.
is-
I think this was my first
Yeah.
event.
It sure was, buddy. So,
Oh
I was the
no!
one who selected the Cyrus footage, and I selected it based on what I thought were some quality fights. And I stand by my beliefs. Part of
I'm.
this was also some surprising footage limitations because a lot of the footage that Cyrus has of himself is not so great.
Well,
But
it's kind of
this
hard for
one
me
I
to
feel,
film and fight at the same time.
well, you should be better.
And a lot of the footage is old and bad quality, and the further we go,
Yeah,
the more unwatchable it becomes.
yeah. So I chose this fight because it was under very, very tenuous circumstances. uh, I was at this event. You were at this event. Obviously, Cyrus was at this event. Um,
We're in the middle of
the
the
ground,
fallout of a hurricane.
yeah, the ground is beyond saturated.
Yeah.
The stress is obviously high because I mean this is semifinals of a QRC. Um, you are fighting somebody who you know very well and who knows you very well.
Yeah, I have known Matthias since he was a youth fencer.
So you got you there's a lot of compounds here that are adding up, and I still think that the fight is handled remarkably well.
So I'm gonna let you take lead on this one, Julius, because you chose these fights.
All right. So I found this interesting because I assumed that you'd be talking about Chris John probably at some point over this. And I liked this fight because again, we see that extremely forward dagger, although not in full refused. You've squared your shoulders, but you're not fighting refused to your opponent. You're just extending that dagger out and working with it and keeping your blade back and more on the low side. And those I kind of was thinking that if you didn't end up touching him, that this would have been a great time to talk about some classic Chris stuff. But
So I guess before we go further, I can talk about a little bit about my decision making here. Yeah, I'm bringing the dagger out far. I don't quite go far enough to be a twisty guard, and I don't generally like to fight refused unless I am literally trying to copy Chris's style. Otherwise, it's not really my thing. Um, and in this fight in particular, obviously, Matthias is my home practice, and he's commonly one of my major bugbears. So you'll see I very, very, very much try to keep him from touching my blade really at all, because at this point between us, if he got a grip on my blade, I'm toast. I mean, he was destroying me left and right if he gets any amount of my blade to control.
this was back when he was using a pretty substantially heavier blade than he's primarily using now, and that thing had blade presence like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
So any amount of contact was just a death knell for most people.
Something
this
else
is a
to note.
very, very good choice.
Something else to note that I don't know if many people would notice, but I am fighting pommeled up.
Uh-huh. You
And
see it right there. You're gripping at the pommel, and you're trying to maximize your range.
yes, especially against him, so that like because I'm not gonna fight him blade on blade because he's gonna beat me. I might as well have the extra range at the cost of ability to fight someone blade on blade. Because if there's one thing that I can get good on Matthias, usually, if I can get him busy, is his lead leg from the outside line becomes very, very vulnerable. And if I can get him on the ground, I could take my time then.
Mm-hmm. Matthias is very wiggly too. He's like an eel.
Yeah.
Some classic testing your reactions.
Yep.
Trying to get through, and it's around this time that I started wondering why you didn't pop him in the leg, because it looks very open from this perspective. And
Well, you know, when I went for it, he killed me for it.
yeah, pretty much. I mean, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and slow this down half. We see
Edward in the background eating a plate of
evaluating.
food.
I didn't want to bring attention to it. Yeah, that's
Oh, it's true, we do. If you look,
I wasn't
you
gonna
can-
be the one to bring attention to it.
Oh, if you look, you can see my stupid face right in the like back left most of the screen.
Oh yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Oh, and you can
That
see
was
my
when I
little
was
grin.
fatter.
That's when I was fatter too. So, and yeah, here we see you going for the leg shot, and he just goes for the chest while he's doing it. And it's a clash that ends in his favor. Now, I picked this one for a very good reason. I picked this one because it gave me an opportunity that I did not expect we'd get in the rest of the video, which was I wanted to be able to talk for you two to talk about lefty on lefty stuff.
Okay.
It's gross.
Right, because here we have Pluin, known lefty, and Cyrus, obviously known lefty, in the QAC semifinals, which went it went how it went. I thought
Oh, I
that this was a
mistitled
nice
this.
fight to. This is not
the semis. This is the quarters.
This is the quarters. Okay, well, you know.
I mean, it's the
feel like
pressure
I'm not
round
the only one.
anyway.
Yeah, the pressure is on. Both of you are masters of defense. You're both very good, and so I wanted to hear Cyrus here talk about really, really good lefties fighting.
Okay.
Really high caliber lefties.
So, when you face another high caliber lefty, it becomes the strangest fight you've ever experienced in your life. Because essentially you've somehow managed to slap down two people with a huge breadth of fight experience. So, things that are true across all fight, like measure control, ideas about tempo, reaction, and reading an opponent, that stuff is all there. But somehow you've managed to suck out all the blade technique. It's gone. It's not there. They have no idea what they're doing.
Yes.
They don't know the angles. They don't know how to oppose each other. And they're starting to relearn the fact that, oh, maybe I should pull my guard in towards my body because the opponent's blade is on my right side.
Yeah.
I remember how I kill Clue in here, and it's a stroke of luck. So we can play the video.
That was very intentional in picking this.
So I am pommeled up again. because I am a scared. And I
And you can
do
see
not
it, too,
believe
'cause
for
you're
a
trying
second
not
I'm
to get
going to
hurt.
beat Cluin. But
You're trying to maximize
if
your
you
range as much
notice,
as possible. and it's
Clun's
good.
at a little bit of a loss too. Like he's swatting at my blade with his dagger a little bit. He's kind of poking at my dagger hand, but this is not the same level of confidence that you saw earlier.
Yeah.
He's
kind
kind
of just
of
looks like a game
trying
of
to figure
chicken.
something out and doesn't. I don't know as if he has a concrete plan. Whereas I'm
Amazingly,
just like, blades forward.
Yeah, amazingly, Clune is a noticeably more experienced fencer here, and looks like he has lost all ideas. And
Yeah.
you are another master defense, and look like you have exactly one idea.
Well, you know what? You know what? I have one idea, and I'm gonna make it happen.
Your
And
idea is blade go forward.
yes, blade go forward over his blade. That's what I want, and that's all I'm trying to get.
But you know what? There's some pretty successful fencers out there who that's basically their whole plan is blade go forward. So like current
It's so
standing champion
interesting
Don
because
Nicolo watching this.
because I'm pommeled. It just looks like I'm pointing a gun at him.
It does.
And
Yeah.
I love it because you guys are both so uncertain. It means that you have these like really jerky moments of movement towards each other, and then you both back up like, okay, I'm ready.
Oh,
And finally, in
The breath of the exhale. I know
it was
you were
so visible.
well,
And
that
you know,
was
it's just finally one of those jerky passes of movements finally has a result.
so something I love about all the footage from this QRC is every time I do win, I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe I won that. It was every fight of like I would just completely exhale and slump my shoulders like I can't believe I just came out on top. And yeah, I
yeah.
managed to catch him. I threw on the inside of his blade straight up and caught him basically right in the side of the left eye.
You know what? Still won.
I did. And I like any amount of micro adjustment off of that and I would have missed his mask.
It was very, very good.
Oh,
This is one that
finals.
goes because it's also the same. It's another lefty on lefty fight.
Yeah, I don't have the sound on for the stream because I can't control how much noise are on videos and whatnot. But this god, this fight starts with me making a joke at Yernder like, you have that in the wrong hand.
And then you make him switch his hands.
Oh no, it's not this one. It was the dagger one. I said that.
Maybe. Probably. And you know, you feel yourself gain something and you just chase him down.
Panic running at your opponent like, please, please die, please die, please die.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just that's a great still frame to come back to.
Oh, I love the dust kicked up.
Yeah.
Yeah, as much as
running backwards, like please don't die, please don't die, please don't die.
as much as you didn't like the venue here, there is something picturesque about the all the dust being kicked up in the duel.
It's
Honestly,
it
yeah.
looks really picturesque, but it was also very gross.
All right, let's talk a little bit about what actually happens here. Because pretty much everything else is irrelevant until we get to this last exchange. So I've halved the speed, and I'm not pommeled up for once.
Mhm.
I've managed to make him fight right-handed, and
Mhm.
I'm trying to dominate his blade. by any means necessary. Lots of posturing.
Because now
Lots of
you're in your
posturing.
comfort spot. You've forced
Well,
him
I guess.
right-handed, and you're under ambidextrous, so he's not that uncomfortable with it. But
He throws, I block, I start coming in. He throws into it again, and I get this locking out parry. I might have rewinded a little too far. He throws, I block, I start coming in to press, and when I get him locked out, I'm like, oh, I've got something. And he
and
has
you
to
just
try
chase
to
him
come
down,
towards
kick
my
out.
body, so I just rotate over what he has.
Mhm.
And yeah.
Bonus lefty fight. There's Marcus and Ferruccio in the background.
Yeah, look at that.
We do got footage of Marcus in here.
Yeah.
It's a shame too, because I seem to remember that Marcus fight being pretty good.
I'm pommeled up again.
You love pommeling up, man.
It's because I'm a scared, okay? Keep in mind, okay, so just important to know, and it's probably why I'm pommeled up here, because I do that a lot when I want range, but the problem with this one in particular is 2 days before this tournament is when I had that unfortunate accident at practice and did the damage to the ligament in my hand. And so this is early in me suffering with the fact that my hand hurts and doesn't want to work right. So being palmed up means sword go forward instead of anything fancy.
There's a lot of back and forth,
Yeah.
Just sort of shooting forward, trying for something.
And Poe's not a stranger to my shenanigans.
Oh no. Poe is a shenaniganer himself.
Indeed.
Big fan of shenaniganery, that man.
He's got a very open guard, and if I can fire down it, it's great. But otherwise, I want to have some control in his sword, but I'm really looking to get past his dagger for that kill shot.
Because he's very defensive with it.
Did Ferruccio just stab Marcus in the face in the background?
Probably.
Yeah, this goes to show. You see all these really small, tight movements that are mostly just the tip moving in a 2-inch wide circle. Just how tight left-handed fencing can be on the angle.
And you disassembled him. You did what you always love to do. I wanted, actually, because I saw a great opportunity to take a look at this. Right, okay. I want to stop right here.
Yeah?
Well, it's because we were talking about it earlier, and I just wanted to bring it up. You see Marcus there in the background, and he has his shoulders extremely squared, and you can't see where his dagger is, but I guarantee it's brought out very far in front to be very active and very much a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
He loves it, and I wanted to show this because I kind of forgot that Marcus was in the background of this video, and I just wanted to kind of show what we were talking about earlier.
What does present day Julius think about past Julius's face in this frame?
Past Julius was trying to not show any expression of emotion.
You look like you're going, ugh, these people.
Yeah, I have a really bad RBF when I'm trying not to make any real clear emotions be on my face. I end up having really bad RBF in exchange. So not a good trade. Not a good trade at all.
So, I take Poe's leg.
Mhm.
I'm gonna rewind. I want to see that leg.
Mhm.
Now, if you notice, Ed, something we talked about before is I threw up high, and I got his attention on his upper body, and then I
Mhm.
throw that leg cut.
Yeah.
Because he
And you
can't
had to be
defend
careful because
both
he almost
planes.
nailed you for it if it
He
wasn't for
did.
your dagger.
Oh, I didn't even catch it on the dagger.
Oh, was that your Keons of your actual sword?
I literally happened to block it with my sword. The sword guard got in the way.
Oh wow, that's excellent.
That was luck. I couldn't have planned for that. But once he's on the ground, it's a little bit harder to control the angle. And
Mhm.
yeah.
And you basically end up having full control over your angle, and you just kind of shoot yourself down the center line.
Yep. Land right
You,
about in his like right hip socket.
yeah, would be a very unfortunate shot to take from a sharp.
And that dastardly rogue falls over dead.
Mhm.
So, before we get into
This is
Edward,
cruel.
Oh no.
before we get into
This is-
Edward, what do you think so far? Now that you've seen a bunch of high class fights and then a bunch of my fights.
I mean, don't sell yourself short, but um, it's hard because I feel like I've learned a lot just in this short time period about how different left-handed fencers have overcome challenges that current me is facing. And in the moment, it's hard for me to like vocalize that. But
Well,
um,
What I would like you to do, Edward, and I'm sure Cyrus would like the same, is I would like you to comment on what you see you doing wrong in these videos from what we've
Oh,
talked
yeah, no.
about today.
Okay. Are you talking in my footage or just in general?
Oh, in your
Yeah,
footage.
your upcoming footage.
Okay.
Your first mistake
Okay,
is you
good.
went up against John Drake.
Yeah, that is
Listen,
a very
okay.
unfortunate mistake to make.
Okay, before we go into this, two things. One, this was my first Adult Swim. Marcus had been talking up John Drake a lot, like to me, like throughout just like several Drovers nights or whatever. And when I heard he was here, I'm like, I gotta go fence him. So like, I made it a point that this day while I was here, I had to go fence John Drake. Second of all, this was me a year ago. I was bad.
No,
And
I
also
don't blame
just
you. I mean, John is an incredible fencer. So to get a chance
yeah.
to fight him for an extended period of time and have it filmed is worth its weight in gold.
I agree
Yeah.
because I constantly come back to this video specifically to see how I've improved, like what mistakes I'm doing, like what mistakes I fix, what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, and different things I can kind of learn from this.
So,
No, he's incredible.
It's
interestingly,
amazing.
okay, John can actually kind of fill in for Marcus here because John fights with that incredibly twisted guard and that sword withdrawn. So we're going to see that from the right-handed perspective against the left-handed fencer.
Okay.
But funny enough, kind of works similar.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Let's see what you got, Ed.
Actually, no. All
Not a
lefty.
whole lot.
A lefty.
So right off the bat, one thing I've already sort of started to change. For some reason, it's still not letting me pause.
Oh, I got you.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you.
I've
So,
saved you
one
from
thing-
imminent death here.
Yeah. You have indeed. I mean, where were you 2024 when I was dying several times? But no. One thing off the bat is my shield and my sword aren't like as close together as I'd initially like. Cuz now I am like they stay together until I see a opportunity to move them, transfer, stuff like that. This, I'm keeping them way too far apart. and as you're about to see, to my detriment.
All right.
Because you can see he immediately slid right under my buckler.
So, John is also pommeled up here. Which is, it's cruel. But, sometimes...
Well, he's not known for being gentle.
Sometimes life ain't fair, and, John's here to teach you that.
I mean, to be truthfully honest, that's how I prefer fights.
So, already I see a bit of an issue. You start this forward assault, and, but you haven't done anything to kind of roll out the red carpet for yourself. Your body starts moving
No.
first. Your sword has no control. He really should have just destroyed you for coming in like this, but he was being nice. The sword clears the way for you first, and then the body follows. It's especially true because when you move your body, it's a gross motor function, and gross motor functions very, very quickly set off people's fight or flight response. They see that way more obviously than they would a fine motor control from like your sword, your hand, something that's a bit more subtle, you know? When you move the whole body, it sets up that big red flag of like, oh, there's a threat coming in, I need to get out of here.
Right. I think at this stage in my fencing career, that is something I was struggling majorly with. And still to this day, but I feel like I've got it a little bit more handled. But at this stage, it was terrible.
So he starts this kind of creeping assault and just
Yeah, right there, just slides completely. I was way too high and just unsure of what he did, so I just gave him a perfect opening and had no reaction time. No clue what my left leg was doing.
Oh, that's okay. But I'll use better footwork.
John is very good in his forward movement at stealing measure from you in a subtle way, where he's actually gaining ground and getting closer to you than you think until he throws something like this center line attack from a low position, which fries a lot of people's brains because they're used to things coming in at towards shoulder level. And so that down from under up thrust is a lot of people just parry right over it. And you see that you've parried right under it, and the shield has gone right over it. So it's right in that sweet spot of both the arms didn't know what to do about this.
Yep, that's exactly it.
You kind of rolled out the red carpet for him.
Yeah. I'm gonna change it to normal speed up. Never mind. Okay, I can't do that.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, right here, quickly learning that my hand was way too exposed.
And here the funny thing is, he used a very bread and butter left-handed shot against you because, like we were talking about earlier, everything's mirrored. And when you have enough experience behind the blade and when you're as good as John Drake is, he knows the lefty tricks, and he's like, oh, okay, you're presenting me that opening? Sure, I'll take it.
Yeah.
It's very good.
You got pretty close to him there. It's pretty nice.
True.
Yeah.
And when he re-engaged, he took a bunch of ground on you and then threw for your hip.
Yep. One thing I struggled with, especially as a newer fencer, is why won't it let me pause? This is
Are you trying to use the native controls?
What do you mean?
Watch Together has an option called native controls that looks like YouTube's controls, but they don't really work. You have to use the bar at the bottom that has the blue bar.
Blue bar? What?
You see the pause button in the bottom left-hand corner?
Oh, yeah. I see native controls.
Yeah, don't use native controls.
Nope.
They don't work.
Okay.
Click the pause button in the bottom left to make it pause. Yeah, see? Like that.
There you
Okay.
go.
But yeah, no. I completely lost my train of thought. In these videos, I really struggled with like where my buckler positioning should be. And that's definitely why I lost my left hand to him a lot.
Yeah, the tough thing you have is you have a very open guard, and you're left-handed, which means your secondary can't cover a lot. It's an annoying thing about us trying to do I-33 is that we're actually supposed to start in that reversed shield guard to cover the back of the hand, because that's where our opponent's weapon sits.
Yep.
And he's just
But
picking you apart.
yeah, but I kind of recommend, especially when you've got a buckler, you probably want to square up because you want to get it out there. But it's probably going to passively catch more than you'll actively catch with it, except for that cross body parry that covers your, like left chest, left shoulder, collarbone, and all that stuff.
Okay.
Because unfortunately, most of the attacks to you are going to come from that outside line, and there's very little your buckler can do about that.
Yeah.
Though conversely, from what you've seen today, maybe you'll try some refused, and you use your buckler to try to make a binary. Are they going to go left or right? Either way, I'm going to block them out, and I'm going to thrust.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Right there, you can see how I intentionally threw for that center line. Like I threw inside and just didn't understand what to do. I think it's right around here.
Andrew the Good mentioned Fabrice talking about making a wedge, and I
Okay.
understand that. A lot of surprisingly, you wouldn't think it, but a lot of my style is influenced by Fabrice talking about the counter guard. And when I talk about, I keep my sword low, and I imagine in visual space where I need to be to basically stringere their sword uh, when I come up. That's all formed from Fabrice's ideas of the counter guard. Is I give them nothing to work with. I imagine where I need to go to form a counter guard that opposes what they're giving me, and then I force myself into that spot quickly in a way that doesn't give them information, and by the time they know what's happening, it's too late.
Okay. So yeah, right there, I immediately threw center. My buckler hand had no idea what I was gonna do with it, so it was just kind of out in space. I kind of flail, try to punish his sword, and just get tagged right in the stomach.
So this right here, I will point out, this is a failure of your order of operations, for sure.
Yeah.
I'll get to this fight. I'm going to slow it down so that I can kind of talk about it as it happens. I'm going to slow it real far down.
Also, will volume change if I turn it down for you guys?
I don't know. Is it
In
muted for you?
Discord,
What?
Is it muted for you?
No, it's really loud for me.
Oh, then you can change it as much as you want. It's muted on my end.
Okay, cool.
So, just watch what happens here. Okay, he comes in to engage. And you see an open line. And you do have an open line here. But your foot is what starts. You should have started with
Yep.
your arm. Push the sword in and take that space and supplement him out, right? Lock him out on the outside line. So you needed
Yeah.
to extend your arm out and turn to second. And then lunge in. But you started with the gross motor function. So now he's already responding. And now he's got you in a situation where he's got you on his sword guard and he's got you with his dagger. So he's double fulcruming you to death.
Yeah.
And,
Yep.
now he's in your shorts and stabbing your ribs.
Yeah.
And you are still trying to escape his dagger because he keeps letting it follow. Very
Yep.
good, very proper.
So this is emblematic of you need to work on your order of operations, where you do drill work, where you stand a guard, you extend the sword forward, you lean the body, then you lunge, and then from the lunge you retreat the foot and the body before the sword leaves. Sword enters the space first, but it leaves last because it's a big chunk of steel. So you want it between the other big chunk of steel.
Right.
And our lovely mod has highlighted that Fabrice's counterguard and the way I talked about it matches with a lot of the Italian raiders talked about gaining your opponent without actually having tacto on them, so you didn't give them information, and basically planning a 3D space where you're going to be without actually being there in a similar way does the same thing.
Right. Okay, now this footage I have a lot more confidence in, and this is, you can see I actually put in the biggest piece of advice that John Drake had given me, and that is my buckler should be living over on the left side of my body, close to my sword. Here I left it a little bit intentionally, like I left my sword intentionally apart, and that's because I'm taking that high guard where I want to constrain. I either want to constrain with my sword, then transfer my buckler. Like the improvements I've made, I feel, are night and day between this video and what we just saw.
Yeah, I mean, I can see from the guard you have here, you have a lot of interesting ideas, depending on what Ferruccio does here against you. Like, if he gives you a normal presented guard, because it's left on right, you're primed to drop down into a like a fendente reversi cut to his forearm, kind of like Manciolina talked about.
Yeah.
And your buckler won't impede what you're doing at all. Whereas
Yeah.
he has naturally taken Capoferra's advice and said, hey, go refused and throw all your defense out there and make them wish they weren't there.
What interested me about how he does this is he incorporates a lot of his buckler fighting from heavy. Specifically this one wrap shot, which he was potentially set up to throw right there. I never really understood why he left his, like, that big of a gap right there, because I felt like it was very easily exploited, and it left me a lot of room to, like, clash. It felt very obscure to me.
What exactly are you highlighting?
So when it's mainly the way he takes that high guard. I'm very unfamiliar with, like, the Capoferro high guard like that. And in a lot of the work that in a lot of, like, the ways I fight buckler, my sword, as you can see, is crossed. That way I can meet with my sword high, transfer to my buckler, and then move accordingly. To me, it just feels like there's a lot of open space in between his sword and buckler for me to get around. Whether that's intentional, uh, I don't think I was sure of in the moment, but it felt very, I don't know.
So I can't kind of get what you mean because he's got it very extended upwards. Um, it's a bit reminiscent of some kind of Bolognese techniques. Um, but the thing is, those are for right-handed fights, righty on righty. And the thing that you need to be aware of as a lefty, um, Ed, is if he's going to put
Mhm.
his arm out that high, he's got to come down to attack you, right?
Yeah,
Well, what happens if your tip's in the way of his forearm travel?
I see.
He's got all that juicy forearm exposed. Now he is refused, so it's pulled back, but he's going to have to come forward to attack you. So, you could harry him aiming for his left hand forearm around the shield to get him to respond. But, so you throw, and he's going to try to parry you out with the shield, and then he's probably going to come in with the sword. But that's what you wanted. So when he moves that shield, you just disengage around it, and then you throw your tip in the travel path of where his arm has to come down, and he impales himself, and now he's down an arm.
True.
And you really don't have to extend into this because it's lefty on righty. You just kind of extend your arm and let the tip go. Yes, poke yourself, poke yourself. You see, he has to come down.
Mhm.
So if you put yourself as an impediment to that downward path, he's going to have to do something else.
Yeah.
About the high guard into the downward path thing. A very, very, very common saber guard that people will take, especially people who know a little bit about saber, is they'll keep the saber kind of horizontally over their head. The exact same problem exists there, and it is enough of a problem that the advised response to it is basically uh, to, when they start bringing down, push forward, and you will slam into their wrist with your blade, and that will stop them from being able to hit you in the head. And it's the same kind of logic. Just, trust that your blade will hit their arm before their blade will hit your head. And you'll be safe.
I'm going to move us slightly. I would like this freeze frame that we had there, but I want it to be a little more visible. Right, so he's changed his tactic a little bit here. He's trying
Yes.
to use his sword and his buckler in tandem. Okay. But you've learned a lot this episode, Ed. So tell me what is wrong with what he's trying to face you with and what you can do about it.
Uh, I'm still bad at this.
Well, that's
I
okay.
mean,
You don't have to get it right. You just have to try to figure it out.
yeah. See, in my head, it's difficult because I know exactly what he's gonna do. This is the setup that he has for a specific shot that he's transferred from heavy. His goal is uh he's gonna throw around like a wrap shot, constrain high, and then turn I think into first, and then move over my sword and then stab me in the chest. It's a shot I've been trying to learn.
Well, I'm talking more general. Like, an opponent presents you with this guard. What can you do to him as a lefty fencer?
To me, the only thing I can really think of is attack like the his like right hip and a left hip because of how exposed it looks from this angle. Granted, from where I was standing, I probably wouldn't have thought that.
Oh, you wouldn't be able to reach it. I mean, his left hip is so far away from you. It's across your body and on the other side.
True.
So I'll tell you what I'm seeing, right? And not only will this align with what we've talked about for lefty basics, but it'll align with I-33 because he's taken an I-33 position, right?
Yeah.
Except it's wrong because he's not in long point per se, because he's not pointed at you. So he hasn't given you a threat, which means you don't have to respect him as much. But the other problem is, because you're left-handed, his shield's covering the wrong side. It needs to be on your sword side. So he's left the outside line completely open, and he's put his shield next to his guard, which means you could easily come down to his outside line and fulcrum him over his other arm and stab him in the face. And what's he gonna
Right.
do about it? Not a
He's
whole lot of
entirely
anything,
occupied over
really.
one point.
He's essentially
Yeah.
like he's trying to cover his hand, but it's wrong, and now it's limiting his mobility to deal with your threats, and he's not offering you a threat, which means you can kind of act with impunity.
Right. I see now.
You know, and like, okay, so you come over his outside line, you push him over, you try to stab him in the face, and he tries to lift his guard and throw for your body with a cut. Well, your buckler's in the way now, so he's still like it's just bad. It's not a good idea. At the very least,
Mhm.
you'll constrain over his sword, and you could just hard over constrain, cut both of his forearms, walk away the victor.
I see now.
And because your blade is raised, you're ready for a hard engagement in on that side. Now, what he switches to is a far more credible threat. Right? Because
Yeah.
he starts fixing his problems. See, now the shield is on the right
Yeah.
side to cover his hand for where your sword is, and he's giving you tips, so now it's a threat.
Yup.
And he's got a logical follow through of if you attack in, the shield can meet the sword and then come apart for the sword to do whatever.
Yeah.
Mhm. And that's what happens. Shield comes apart, sword does whatever it wants.
And so, like, understanding the tactical flaws in a position your opponent gives you is everything because he gives it to you again here. Now, this is more of a traditional long point kind of guard, but his shield's on
Yeah.
the wrong side again. So, it's got similar issues. So, like, you have a lot of options here. Like, I don't know, if you pushed your buckler forward right into his tip and then forced it to your right side into his own shield, or you know, you attack from the outside to his forearm, and you kind of have an idea there. But I would have assaulted with your left foot forward first before stepping with the right,
Yeah.
because you essentially stepped it into his you stepped it. Oh God, that stutter is awful. You stepped into his more defended part.
I think in my head I was going for a transfer and just try to take space and like step a little bit to the right.
I mean, it's all good ideas, but you're starting with the body first, is kind of the problem.
Yep. Yeah. I think in my head it felt like my blade was
Oh,
moving
okay,
first.
so this what I don't know if Ferruccio is watching, but he needs to explain for himself what he's doing here. Because
You should be watching. You told me that you were going to watch. So
if
why
Ed
are your
pushes his
wrists
buckler
crossed?
towards Ferruccio's sword, towards the blade, how is he ever getting out? He's blocked by 2 bucklers. Like, he's gonna have to aim for your feet or something. Oh, and that bled forward. I want to see what happened there. You just didn't believe in your attack. You should have pressed into him more.
It's one of my biggest flaws. I need to just start like trusting that I have the kill.
It's a common and interesting phenomenon that, like, your buckler gets taken, and since you can only focus on your sword, everything dramatically improves because you don't have that secondary distraction, which is a problem for a lot of people. I mean, I get it bad with cloak a lot of times still. Ah, no, Ed. No, Ed. No.
Yeah. I
You
think
had
there I
all the
was
right
set up.
ideas.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it. You know, he puts everything together right there, and you're like, "Oh, attack right into it. Go right over, stab him in the face." And you're like, "No, I don't believe I have it." You have it.
Yeah.
You have it. You got to believe in yourself.
It's something I'm still trying to work on.
It's something and I get it because it's actually something I've been working with Jan on for a while now, because he would have the same problem of I'd overcommit and he'd know what the shot was and he'd go like a third into it and then back off because he didn't believe he had it. And I'm like, no, I'm out in the wind. You need to kill me.
Yeah.
You
The way
just
that
have to go into some fights and just it doesn't matter if you die or not. You commit. You just force yourself to commit and you get over that hesitancy.
Started working myself out of it. Not to say I don't do it at all anymore, but you know,
Well,
less,
everybody does.
is I don't think about it like trusting myself. Instead, I think about it how it's talked about in some treatises. Is trust your blade, trust your guard. You know, I don't trust myself at all, but I trust that that blade is exactly where it is, and that you're not gonna cut through my sword. You know, I know where it is. I know where yours is. I know how physics works, so I just trust that my blade will continue to function as a blade. And as long as my blade does not get sliced in twain, the guard's gonna hold, and I'm going to cut you in the face. I don't know. That helps me at least.
No, that's understandable.
That time it's all about where you meet his blade. You hit the forte, so he had ability to go around you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Honestly, what I'm seeing a lot from this footage is it would very much benefit you to have some work on just getting your blade out there and bullying your opponent's blade around, forcing it to go left, forcing it to go right, but basically keeping it from where they want it to rest. Because there are a lot of
Okay.
spots where if you just gave them a bunch of bullying, you'd be able to make an opening. But you're doing a lot of trying to go around what they have presented instead of making it open.
Yeah. There you missed one of my patented good screams.
Oh,
That
I
was
heard it
turning
when I was
around.
editing this.
Oh, you gotta love a good Edward.
Discord
He's
does
such-
not
Thousand Year
allow.
Girls crying out. in
Yeah,
silence.
Discord does not allow. Discord does not approve of my shenaniganery.
You know.
It's a couple spots in these fights I see that Ferruccio's shin is very exposed in ways that you could have cut and got out.
Yeah. I think a week after this footage was taken, I actually did speak to Marcus a little bit, and I saw the benefit of actually like just making like hard contact on my opponent's blade and then just forcing it out of the way.
Huh. I put something else in here and it didn't. I guess it didn't save. But I was gonna look
That's
at
okay.
your fight with Ferruccio during the Solvacani Championships.
I'm honestly kind of glad you didn't because I don't. That footage, I was not fighting him. I would say that was probably the worst I fought all these past few months.
Well,
Like my
sure,
head
but
wasn't in it, and
there is something worth looking at. You know, if you always look at your best, you might miss some things.
that's
But
true.
you know,
But
it's
I think it's
okay.
probably a good time to stop looking at footage anyway.
Well, yeah, we can start wrapping up here.
Yeah.
So what have you learned, Ed? What do you think? What do you think is the most crucial thing you've picked up from these last 2 hours?
For me, it's the actual benefits of refused, having confidence in my strikes, and actually like if I have my opponent dead to rights or not. Um, the advantage of being a lefty in general, and how much that like we also struggle against lefties ourselves. Uh, and I guess one of the bigger things is like forcing my opponent to have just that binary choice, like we saw in the Chris versus Master Trap fights.
What did you think of getting to see some footage um, of the progenitor of all three of our lineage?
It makes sense. Like thinking back on it, like as we were watching this, I kind of played back some of our fights in our head, and I can see the resemblance. A lot of times, like I could see like different moves or different stances that you've mirrored and put your own spin on it. It's incredible to see how people take things from their lineage and from their peers and then make it their own so that they can either use it themselves and improve on it or pass down to future cadets or just friends.
Andrew in the comments has asked about traditional footwork versus passing steps. And I think that's an interesting thing to bring up for lefties in particular, because generally I will advise against repeatedly making switching footsteps, if that makes sense, where you go from presented to refuse to presented again. Um, Especially with lefties, because we have that slight range advantage, having multiple intention attacks that keep the pressure on, and doing something that's like lunge, recover forward, lunge, and then a pass step where you bring that back foot forward, but you always stay presented and you get that much extra more ground, it really will put the cherry on top for some of your multi-attention attacks. Because your opponent's running away, you've missed twice, but they're not expecting that huge boost of range you get from that passing lunge.
So my footwork isn't really something I've thought about a whole lot, and I definitely need more practice before I can say anything as far as me fighting with rapier and buckler and all that. However, when I fight longsword, it feels like I'm just like in a suit of tin cans and I'm just like clunking around, having to switch my feet around to throw different angled cuts.
Yeah, longsword really puts a stark contrast on problems with your footwork that you can kind of muddle through with rapier, but trust me when I say just because it doesn't feel as bad doesn't mean it isn't as bad.
Yeah.
Footwork is everything no matter what you're using. And the fact that you like to use buckler styles with slightly shorter swords means your footwork really needs to be on point because you need to maintain and control the distance between you and your opponent like nothing else.
Yes. Kind of reiterate, it shows how much I need to work on footwork when I fight longsword, because it's like you said, it's night and day. I will say I have been like periodically when I remember doing that one drill of just like walking forwards and backwards in stance.
Yeah, something that Julius and I are working on right now too is trying to get a more knee bend and get the center of gravity lower and up that mobility and length, you know.
Yeah.
Um so something for you, Ed, if you've done some of that walking drill, okay, is
Mhm.
here's an escalation for you to practice. Is when you do your walking drill where you get in stance and you step forward, step forward, step forward, step back, step back, step back, right?
Yeah.
Try to do it, okay? You get in the stance, you do your steps. Your goal is to walk the length of whatever you're doing, and every step, you make sure that your head doesn't go up and down when you step, that you stay at the same level all the way through.
Okay.
Because if you're doing that up, down, up, down, up, down, that's extra effort and extra time that your steps take. Not only that, but it'll actually disorder your guards because if your upper body's going up, your arms go up and then they go back down.
Right.
So you potentially are getting hit either under your guard or now over your guard. So if you can do all your steps while maintaining your upper body in the same space, you'll be in so much better shape.
Okay.
And if that's something you need a visual reference for, then that's something I can film at a practice or something. Um, there was something else that I wanted to film. Oh, because we're doing the gunnery unit, I was going to film some of the techniques that we've been practicing, um, so that the rest of the gunnery unit can see it. So, yeah,
Okay.
if anyone watching wants to a particular visual reference for something that we've talked about, so that you can practice it, write us a comment, and it's easy enough for me to go in the yard and do a little clip for you so that you have a visual guide so that you can practice at home. Because we do all this stuff because I really like talking to Ed, of course. Julius, I could take or live, but this
Take
is
or
all to
live, huh?
help
Jeez.
people get better.
Yeah, I mean it's all about helping people and all that. With
Yeah.
that being said, I'd also really love to hear what people would like us to cover next. I mean,
Yeah,
we take suggestions very seriously. We'll do them if we want.
Or if you would like to come on and have your fights reviewed and workshopped like we've done with Ed here, we're interested in doing that with working with people. Julius, what have you learned about left-handed fencing today?
Well, so I think probably the most useful thing on left-handed fencing that I've kind of gone through today is just how much of it is based on a lack of mutualistic experience, right? So a lot of the tricksy left-handed nonsense that a lot of people like calling it is on a more realistic note, just about the fact that right-handed people don't get to experience left-handed stuff enough. And left-handed tactics aren't really truly left-handed tactics, but mixed-handed tactics. And I'd be really interested in kind of further discussing, at a future point, how we can try and teach right-handed people to more effectively implement those same kind of techniques.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. We've got a
And vice
comment
versa, too.
asking for potentially us covering Messer as a topic.
I
That
would
could
love
be
to
fun.
cover Messer at some point.
Yeah, so
I
I'm not
know
really
a
an
thing or
expert in
two.
that. But Messers are very knife-like, obviously, and they usually have a little bit of curve. So maybe we can do the next episode on curve blades. And this was my kind of expertise episode as a left-handed fencer, so we could do curve blades as Julius's expertise, and that'll at least cover Messer a little bit.
It's true. I mean, I would consider Messer probably a good third of the ideas on Saber. Or Saber, literally in this case, meaning a one-handed curved blade. Because you have the sort of the ideas of Messer kind of extend maybe four, because you have the ideas of Messer, you have the ideas in Eastern Europe, which sort of transition into the Middle East. You have the ideas of Western Europe, like Britain and Spain, and then you have the ideas of the East, which are a little bit more out of my depth. I know a lot about the Chinese systems, but not a lot about the Japanese or the Korean systems, which is I consider a great personal failing. But the truth of the matter is that the Japanese didn't do a lot that I am particularly interested in, and I don't read Korean, which makes the Korean ones pretty hard to breach into.
Well, join us next time where Julius learns Korean.
If I could
Oh
throw out an
boy.
option,
Sure.
what about the differences between various parry objects and the actual historical treatise behind them?
That I would
Form
totally be
spotlights
up
are
for.
definitely a thing that I'd love to do.
One
Oh,
of our
yeah. I
plans
mean,
definitely is to do full episodes on like, okay, we just talk about sword and dagger, sword and buckler,
Okay.
for a whole episode, and varieties and ideas on
Oh.
technique and left-handed perspective. So yeah, that's definitely in the cards.
I was more referring
Cloak
to like,
episode would be really fun to do soon.
yeah. I was just
But I will
talking about like
definitely
the
start
difference
looking
between.
for footage for some good Saber episodes, Saber episode stuff. Because I mean, Donnan is real close, and he has a lot on Messer.
Yeah.
Our wonderful mod again suggests melee, which I think is definitely going to happen, and I think would be a great episode to do after Penzik.
Yes,
True.
that I think
That's-
was our plan that we talked about was filming some of the war points and then covering it right after war. Doing like
yeah,
we'll do like a tournament focused episode and then we'll do a melee focused episode.
there's actually 3 episodes I want to do from Penzik. I want to do like a select a selection of champs, best of the known world, where we focus on the best of the best fighters. And I would
Mhm.
love to get a section on the novice tournament and a little bit on the cadet tournament, where we talk about less experienced fighters.
Yeah, sounds good. But yeah, that's all for us today. If you have any further ideas on things you'd like to see in an episode, or if you would like to be featured on an episode and have footage covered, leave us a comment on this video, and we'll take all sorts of suggestions and keep them on a big list, and then we'll get them to wow, it's been a long day already. We'll get to each of them in time. There's a lot of things we want to do, and we'll get to it all eventually. But that's
In
all
the
for now.
meantime,
Do you have any
see
parting
you.
words, Julius?
It's always a pleasure, and I'm excited to see you next month, where I will have apparently learned Korean.
Yeah, there we go. Any parting words, Edward?
Just thank you guys for having me on. It's been a very fun experience, and I've learned a lot.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to have a guest.
Always a pleasure.